Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be working on CSS and JavaScript. We're going to be building this website right here. It's going to be animated. As you can see, we have a custom cursor. Also, when I refresh this page, it's going to animate. Okay, as you can see, we have nice animations. We also have scroll animations as well. So as you can see, it's animating on scroll. Okay, we have nice have animations as well. Alright, see, as you can see, nice have animations. And yeah, so this is the website. It's only animated using CSS and JavaScript. It's not that difficult to do. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do that. Also, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. Usually most people who watches my video are not subscribed, so they're just they just come and watch the video without subscribing. So please, if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so for this inspiration of this website, I was looking for some templates, and then I was looking for free templates, and then I found the template right here on this website, Specky Boy. And then I found this template, and then I kind of like the theme of the website. It's kind of like, you know, minimalistic. By the time I made this video, this website was free. I don't know why, for some reason it says $2, but it was free. So it's like a free template. So I kind of got the inspiration from this site. So it's kind of minimalistic, and then I kind of like the look of it. So yeah, I'll see you in the video. I have a few folders which doesn't have anything important at the moment. So I have an image folder. It contains all of the images that we're going to be using. And then we have the JavaScript folder. We have an empty file here, and then we have these tiles with an empty file as well. So this tile is using a Sass extension, which is SCSS. So you can create an extension using that SCSS extension. And also in the index we have nothing, so I'm just going to generate HTML markup in here, and then I'm just going to name this website black theme. It's up to you what you decide to name it. Okay, so for the CSS extension, go to the extensions and look for Sass compiler. So it's going to help us compile the Sass code, and then here just install the Sass compiler. If you don't want to, you can use some different compiler as well. Okay, so in here I'm going to click this button here, watch Sass, and then it's going to generate a CSS file in here. So we can make updates to this SCSS file, and then all those updates are going to be put here inside the style CSS. Because our browser cannot read this SCSS extension, it only reads the CSS extension, so it's going to convert our Sass code to CSS. So now I'm going to link that CSS file into our index.html. To do that, I'm just going below the title, and then I'm just going to do link, and then I'm going to go to the style folder and then link the style CSS. So in here in the Sass, whatever changes I've made, they automatically compile to this CSS file. We don't need to do anything to this CSS file. We just touch the SCSS file. Okay, so in the Sass, I'm going to use some variables. Actually, before we do that, let's go to Google Fonts. Google Fonts, and get some fonts. So the font that I'm going to be using in this one, it's going to be what font do I have here? Montserrat. Yeah, I think we're going to be using Montserrat. So just copy the font here, and then copy this link, and then just go to the index. I've already have these links I mean, in my clipboard, so I'm just gonna paste the font family here. So I'm using font weight of 400, 700 and 800. Okay, so that's it for the font. Now we just need to start doing our HTML. Before we do that, I'm just going to paste in a few variables from Sass that I'm going to be using. So I don't want to waste your time creating new variables in here. So these are the colors that we're going to be using. I've already done these colors off camera, so I don't waste your time doing all these variables. And then I'm just going to do some basic page resetting, margin to 0, padding 0, list style to none, and then box sizing to border box, Okay, so this is just basic resetting stuff. Okay, and then I'm going to make a comment, and I'm going to do utilities. So utilities are like small utility classes that we're going to be using maybe for our entire pages. So if you want to make utility classes, you can do that, or you cannot. It's up to you. So I'm just going to make a utility for the padding. I'm just going to say pad. So this one is a utility that's going to have 8 row padding, pad 8 util. Okay, so I'm just going to name this padding. So for the padding, I'm going to do left and right. Left and right is going to have 8 left and right, and then we're just going to do padding left and right. Actually, top and bottom 0, left and right is going to be 8. So that's our utility that we're going to be using. This utility, that's why I'm just doing it now. Okay, so now let's go for the body. So for the body, we're going to set the font family. So if you remember, we copied the font family, which is Montserrat, and then we're going to do a color. Color is going to be white, or you can do -ff, or you can do this color as a variable, just in case you want to change this color. You can make it as a variable up here. Okay, so we have a color, and then we're going to also do a font size. Font size is going to be font primary. I think that's what I did for the font size. And then the background color for the entire page is going to be black. Alright, so now to view this, I'm going to be using Live Server. You can look for Live Server from the extensions. Okay, so now we have the website. So but we have nothing. We just need to add our markup now. So in here, I'm just going to do header. Okay, so this is going to be our main header. So in the header, we're going to have a nav of with the class of navigation, and then in the navigation, we're going to have a logo, the class of logo, and then in the logo, we're going to have img logo, and then that's going to be our main logo. And then in here, we're going to have a ul nav items, and then we're going to have a nav item li.nav item. It's actually not nav, it's nav item, like this, nav item, li nav item. And then in there, that's where we are going to do the links. So we have home, and then I'm just going to paste in the rest of the nav items. Okay, so we have 4 nav items, I think, and then finally we have an anchor tag with a class of CTA and a register. It's going to be like a button at the top. Okay, so that's it for the navigation. After the navigation, we have the header content. So after nav, we're still in the header. We're going to say dot header content. We're still in the header, so we're just going to do some header content. Okay, so in the header content, we have the left header. Okay, so left header in the header content, and then in the left header, we're going to have a small btn, and then we're going to have .btn secondary. Okay, so for the btn secondary, I'm just going to put some text. Okay, and then after that, I'm just going to do a paragraph, and then just going to paste in some text. Okay, so that's the text. After this small button, I'm going to do an h1 with a class of primary heading. So that's the h1 with a class, and then I'm going to do a div with a class of input control. So in the input control, we're going to have an input and a button. Okay, so we're going to have input with a placeholder of email address, class input, and then a button of btn submit. Okay, so after the left header, we're going to have the right header. Okay, so now let's save this. That's what we have now. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the styles. Let's start doing some styles. Okay, so for the styles, I'm going to say dot header. I'm going to select the header, and then I'm going to say mean height is going to be 100 VH. So want the header to have at least a minimum height of 100 VH. And then I'm going to target navigation. So for the navigation, I'm going to give a mean height of 10 VH. Mean height 10 VH. And then I'm also going to do a display flex space between. It's actually justify content. Justify content space between. What's going on? Space. That's what happens when you don't have autocorrect. Between. Okay, so space between, align items to center. Okay, so now we've aligned items to center, and then I'm just going to change the font weight. Sorry about that. To 500. I'm going to save. So there it is. So the navigation, the icon, and the nav items are spaced between. Now I'm going to target the nav items. So the nav items are going to do display flex as well. Flex, align items to center, and then in the nav items, I'm going to target a nav item, which is the li. So for each nav item, I'm going to have a margin of 0, margin 0 top and bottom, and then 1 rem left and right. So we want it to be spaced out a little bit. And then I'm going to target the anchor tag text decoration to none. And then the color is going to be white. -ff. So that's the color. There it is. Actually, text decoration. I'm pretty sure I've done text decoration here. List text decoration to none. I'm just going to do it here so we don't have to redo it again. So text decorations to none. Now it doesn't underline anymore. Okay, great. So now we're going to be using that utility class somewhere. So what did we name our utility? Where is it? Oh, there it is. So padding 8. I'm just going to copy this class name. So whenever we want to use this utility class, we're going to put it here in the header, actually in the navigation itself. What is the navigation? Okay, right next to the navigation, because we want to have spacing. So we put in the navigation. Seems to be not working. I just need to save. Save, quickly save. Okay, I don't know why it's not working. Oops, I'll close this. Navigation, class. I don't know. Let me inspect this to see why it's not working. Inspect nav. Oh, something's wrong because I've missed rem here. Okay, so there it is. So now we have a bit of spacing between here. So we're also going to be using this utility class on the header content too. Okay, so it's just give space around. Alright, so now going back, where did we left off? So now let's go back to we're still in the header. So after the nav item we have the CTA. So that's like the button. I'm going to give it a padding and a background color of white. So padding top and bottom. I'm only doing this because I want to make this video as short as possible. This video is mainly I wanted to do the animations with JavaScript, so I don't want to spend a lot of time doing the CSS and the HTML. It's gonna take a lot of time to do all those styles, so I'm going to copy and paste some styles here and there. Okay, so I've created a variable of transition, which is trans. It's going to put a transition. It's going to put a transition here. So that's the variable name, trans. So it's a transition of 0.4 seconds, is in and is out. So that's the name of the variable. And then when we have this button, I want to have a color. So and hover, we're going to have a background color of high CCC and then a color of purple. So that's what happens when I hover this button. Okay, so yeah, that's it for this button. I'm going to go ahead and style the header content. So we're still in the header. I'm going to say dot header content. So in the header content, I'm going to do, you know what, I'm going to do a grid. I'm going to create a mixin. You know what, this is not a CSS video, so I'm not going to waste your time doing. So I'm going to do display grid template columns. I'm going to repeat 2 1FR. So we're going to have 2 columns with each they have equal size, and then I'm going to give it a margin top of 12 frame, and then position of relative. You're going to see why we're using position relative. I'm going to explain later why we're using position of relative. Okay, so and then I'm going to save this. So as you can see, we have a grid in here. So we have a grid with 2 columns. So there it is. We have column first column and second column. Okay, so in here we're going to go to the, we have header content, we have left header. Okay, so in the left header, what we have small btn, if you remember. So that's like a small button. I'm just going to paste in some styles as well. I don't want to waste your time writing this from one by one from scratch. So with 60%, blah blah blah. So there it is here. That's the small button, small btn. Okay, so it seems like I've did a wrong class naming here somewhere. Small btn. Okay, it's correct. Okay, so there it is, small btn, but it seems like our styles are not showing. What did I name wrong somewhere? Small btn, left header. Okay, so make sure you give your classes correct names. Okay, so in here we have btn secondary. So for the btn secondary, I'm just going to paste in some styles as well. Okay, so now we have this button here. After that, we have the main title after small button dot primary heading. I think that's what I've named the class. Primary heading. The color is going to be white. #ff color white, and then font size 6 rem for the font size, and then the font weight. Font weight is going to be 800, so it's going to be like really thick. So there it is, font weight. So now I'm going to go down here. I'm just going to comment. I'm going to say reusable styles. So with Sass, so if you're nesting styles like this, that means if you create another let's say another component using the same class, it's not going to inherit. If you create the component outside of this component, if the styles are inside here, if you create it outside, it's not going to inherit all these styles. So if you want to something to re-inherit these styles, if you want to reuse those styles, you need to create those styles outside of a parent container. You need to do that in the global. So this is like the global, and then don't do it inside another component. So just do it outside in the global. So in here I'm going to say dot input controller, because I want to reuse this input controller styles. That's why I'm doing this in the global, so I can reuse this wherever, anywhere I want to. Otherwise, if it's inside a specific parent, I'm not going to be able to access those styles if I use it outside that parent. Okay, so now the input controller is right here, right? Input control, actually no controller, it's right here. I want to use this input control outside of this sometimes, so that's why I'm doing in the global. Okay, so now input control, I'm going to start styling the input. So for the input control, it's going to have display flex, and then we're going to have a width of 100%, and then we're going to have margin top of 3 rem. Okay, so the margin top, and then we're going to do btn submit. So for the btn submit, I'm going to have outline and a border of none, because by default the button we have a outline and border, and then the padding top and bottom is going to be 0.1 rem, and then left and right 1 rem. Okay, so the cursor is going to be pointer. So cursor pointer. I don't know why it's not auto-completing correctly. So cursor pointer, and then I'm going to do some border radius. So border, I'm going to do border top right radius of 8 pixels and top bottom 8 pixels. So here, so that's where I want to do the border, top right and bottom right. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. And then a transition, I'm just going to use the trans variable. So that's our transition. And then I'm going to do a hover animation. So for the hover, it's just changing the background color. Alright, so there it is. The background color just changed. Okay. Input. So we need to also start the input. So I need to start the input and the button together actually. So to do that, button submit, I'm going to go outside the button submit. And then I'm going to say .btn submit and comma input. I want to target the input as well. So this one I'm going to do font family inherit, and then font size inherit, I think, and then font weight of 500, and then I'm just going to do a background color. It's just like this kind of, dark gray color. Okay, and then now this is what we have. I don't know why it's glitching. So this is what we have. We still have an outline on this input, outline and a border, so we need to get rid of that. So I'm going to go outside here. I'm just going to say input. So we need to give it a padding, top and bottom is going to be 0.8 rem, and then 1.3 rem left and right, 1.3 left and right. Okay, so now we've that, we just need to give it a dark background color as well. I'm just going to paste that in, and then we're going to do border of none, and then an outline of none. We don't want any outline of none. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing for the border top radius. So border top left radius and border bottom left radius, and then a color of white when we're trying to input something. We want the color to be white. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so now we just need to find a way to give this like a width. So this input control width 100%, I've said that already. Okay, so we just need to do the input itself. So input, we're going to do width of 70%. So we want, okay, there it is. So we have a nice 70% width. Alright, so now we have after the input we should have something, a small text, input control dot s text, small text. So here we're just going to do a paragraph and then just put a random text, maybe lorem 6, something like that. So this is actually a paragraph, not a div. Okay, so I'm just going to change this from a div to a paragraph. Okay, That's it. So for the small text, I'm just going after the input control. Okay, so we can now go back and go to the primary heading. What was this? Primary. Yep, I can go below this primary heading, and from there I can start styling the s text, and then I want it to have a font size of 0.9 rem and a margin top of 0.8 rem, and then a color is just going to be like a grayish color. Okay, so there is should be somewhere there. I just need to save. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now I'm going to, so remember, if we did a grid here, if I inspect this, so we have 2 columns. So in the right header, I'm not going to put anything. You can put an image. So because this whole thing, I'm getting this from inspiration. I've seen like there was like a free website template that I saw online. I'm going to show you. The guide, he didn't use like an image. The website is like kind of minimalistic, so that's the look I'm kind of going for as well. Okay, so now after that, I'm going to do a section. So after the header, I'm going to say main content. Alright, so in here I'm going to say section stats. So this is going to be like a section that is going to contain the stats, and then p lr dash and then 8, the utility class. Okay, so now we have section stats and the utility class. So we have 2 things. Okay, so in here I'm going to say section filler. You're gonna see why I'm using this section filler. I'm just going to keep it there. Just leave it blank for now, and then I'm going to say actually I'll get rid of this section filler for now, and then I'm going to edit later, and then start. So this start is going to sort of be like a grid item. Okay, so in the start we're going to have icon, we're going to have img, and then in here we're going to say img data. Okay, so we have the icon, and then we have h4, and then here we're just going to say storage, and then after that is just a random paragraph and a button. I'm just going to paste that in. So we have a paragraph just with random lorem text, and then a button. Okay, so we have a start. I'm just going to duplicate this 2 more times, and then for this one, the second one, this one is going to be, I think, cloud, and then cloud, I don't know, cloud share, and then the other one, the last one, is going to be bug. I can't remember what I've named. I think it's bug free, something like that. It's up to you how you decide to name it. Okay, so I'm just going to select the main content. I'll go below the header, after the header, so in the global, that's I'm going to paste the main content class, and then I'm going to target this section stats. Okay, so now I'm going to target the stats, section stats. So it's going to be a display of grid. We're going to have 3 columns. Okay, so we did the grid template columns before, so it's not new to you. Grid template columns, repeat, and then we're going to have 3 columns, 1 fr. Okay, so I want a gap between the grid, so I'm just going to use a grid gap of 4 rem. So we want the gap only on the columns. Okay, and then a padding bottom of 8 RAM. Excuse me, 8 RAM. Okay, so there it is. I'm just going to save this. So now we have a 4 RAM grid gap. Okay, seems like this is the wrong class name. Can't remember what I've named this one. Header content. Okay, so the naming was wrong. So now there it is. So now I'm going to target the icon. So icon is, I'm just going to give it a background color. It's a variable color. It's a color light, and then a padding of 3 RAM, and then display. It's going to be flex, align items, center, justify content. It's going to be center as well, and then a border radius is going to be 50% because I want it to be rounded. So to make sure something is rounded, you make sure you give it an equal width and height. So width is going to be 40 pixels, and then height is going to be it should be equal to the width, to make sure everything's rounded. Okay, so width and height is equal to 40%. So now it's nicely rounded. Okay, so after that, I'm going to target the H4. I'm going to give it a color white and a margin top of 1.5 RAM. Okay, so you know the rest. So now it should look nicer. It should like be nicely spaced out. And then I'm going to target the paragraph inside the. We're still inside the section stats. I'm going to target the paragraph. I'm going to give it a color of the light 2, color light 2, and the opacity of 0.5. Okay, so there it is. Alright, so now we also need to style this button. So this button is a class name of let me double check this class name. BT and dark. I'm going to select this. Excuse me. So this BT and dark, I want to reuse this. After the input control, I'm going to say BT and dark because I want to reuse this. But before I do that, I'm just going to give a background color to the grid stats. Okay, so the grid stats, the background color, I can't remember what background color I've used for that one. Let me double check. Okay, I think there's no background color for that. Okay, so now I'll just go ahead and do the BT and dark. Excuse me. Okay, so BT and dark. So it's an anchor tag display. I'm going to set to inline block, and then text decoration is already none, so we don't need to do it. Margin top, it's going to be 1.2 RAM, and then the background color is going to be the light color, and then the color is going to be a white color with a reduced opacity. Okay, so the font family is going to be inherit, font size inherit. Okay, so the padding is going to be top and bottom 0.8 RAM. I'm just gonna paste in the values so you don't see me doing all the styles. It's gonna waste your time. Seems like these styles are not working. Let's see why. BT and dark. Inspect this to see what's going on. BT and dark. Interesting. Those styles are just not showing up. I don't know. Maybe the class name BT and dark. Oh, we have an error somewhere. So here it's not compiling. Let me see where I went wrong. Color light, do you have this variable? Let me see. It doesn't say where I went wrong. Let me just double check if I have this variable. Okay, it is there. Oh, there it is. So margin top 1 point something RAM. So the margin top is 1.2 RAM. That's what I don't like about programming. So any random error can mess up everything. Okay, so there it is. So now we have a button. So button dark. So after that, we have let me see if we need to change anything. Okay, I think that's it for this section. I'm going to go to another section which is the plan section. So I'm not going to show you a lot of HTML in here because I don't want to waste your time writing all these sections. So in here we have section plans. Okay, so here I'm just going to collapse this, copy this utility class, put it here. Okay, it's actually plans. Okay, so in here after the I'm going to collapse this section stats and then start doing the section plans. Okay, so now I'm just looking for the styles for that. Okay, so section plans, copy after that. Okay, so in here the btn dark button, btn dark, I wanted to have a different background color. So in here I just want the background color to be black. Okay, so I'm just going to save everything. I haven't put the background color, the btn dark yet. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to the HTML. In here I'm just going to say dot big text. Excuse me, a big text, and then I'm going to paste in some text. Okay, so I'm surrounding this letter here, not letter, I mean this word, with a span with a class of underline, because I want to underline this letter, this word, I want to underline this word. Okay, so that's why I'm surrounding it with a span tag. Okay, so after that I'm just going to do another div, team cards, and then with the class of team. Okay, so and then in the team I'm just going to do team content. So this is going to be, this team is going to be like a card component. So we are going to have two cards actually. So we have the dot team btn, and then we have individual. Okay, so after that we have a paragraph with another span. So after this individual we have a paragraph. Okay, so the title is covered with a name, whatever name you want to do. I'm just using LRM, you can use any. So if you remember, we have a class of btn dark, there it is. So we are reusing this button. We created this button earlier before. Okay, so that's it for this card. I'm just going to duplicate this team. It's actually this team component. I'm just going to copy and duplicate. Okay, so I'm going to change this from individual to teams or team, whatever you decide to name it. Okay, so there it is. So down here I'm going to go back to the styles and go to the section plans. So I'm just going to firstly I'm going to target the team cards. I'm going to target that, and then I'm going to do a grid. It's we've done this before, no brainer. 2 columns and grid gap of 2 rem, and then margin top and bottom 6 rem. So like so, we have a nice margin top and bottom. Alright, so now, so this is the big text. We need to style this again. So I'm going to say dot big text class. Okay, so this is going to be like a big text. We done like a similar styling before for the heading text. So we have font weight of 800, font size of 5 rem, margin top and bottom 4.5 rem. So there it is. So in the big text we actually have that span, if you remember the underline. So we can do span, or you can target the class name which is underline, or you can do span, but this span is corresponding to this big text, only to this. So we can select like this by targeting the span inside, and then we're going to do border bottom. So the border bottom is going to be 3 pixels, solid, hash, this purple color. So there it is. So now we have a nice underlining. Okay, so after that I'm going to do team, so each card, and then I'm going to give it a background color and a transition. Okay, so there it is. So we have background color, border, transition, and then when I hover on hover, I'm going to do a transform, and then I'm going to scale this. I'm going to scale 1.1, and then I'm going to do important. I'm going to explain why we're using important. Okay, I'm going to explain later. It's going to make sense, make a lot of sense when you see why I'm using this. Okay, there it is. So now we have a nice half animation. Okay, so after the team we have the team content. So as you can see, there's no spacing here, there's no padding, so we need to add a padding. So the padding is actually here in the team content. We need to add a padding around it. So the padding is going to be 2 rem. So the padding is 2 rem, and then the paragraph inside that, we're going to give it a color. I'm just going to paste in the color actually. So we have a color, and then I'm going to target this span inside this paragraph as well, and then give it a color of white. Okay, so this is actually an actual white color. I just reduced the opacity and then give this span color a white color. So there it is. So white color, and then I just reduced the opacity of the rest of the paragraph. Okay, so we have this nice half animation here. Okay, so we also need to style the what did I use for this one? Is it teams, team button, team btn? Can't remember what I've used for this one. Okay, so team btn. I'll go outside here, and then I'll do team btn. Okay, so margin top and bottom is going to be actually margin around everything. Margin bottom, top margin bottom is going to be 2.5 rem, and the background is going to be the purple color. So there it is. And then I'm going to also do a display of inline block. I don't want to fill the whole width like this, so that's why we're going to do display inline block. It's only going to surround whatever information is inside it. So display inline block, display inline block is going to only surround whatever content we have within this item. Okay, so I'm also going to give it a padding, and then a text transform of uppercase, and a border radius of 5 pixels. I want it to be rounded. Okay, so now it's nicely rounded. Alright, so now this section is done. We're going to move on to somewhere else. So now let's move on to the gallery section. Okay, I'm going to say section dot section gallery. Okay, so this is the most boring part doing the HTML. I'm going to copy the utility class again. So in here, I'm just going to do gallery content. Okay, so we have a class of gallery content. In there we have a h3 with a small title class, and then you can put random text, whatever text you want, and then a paragraph with the random text. I'm just using the lorem ipsum text. Okay, so below that I'm going to do an image div. It's going to contain an image, and then img.camera, so it has a class of camera, img camera. Okay, so there it is. And then below that I'm going to say dot bottom btn, and then in there I'm going to do an arrow. So I'm going to use the HTML entity. It's actually a right arrow. I think it's this one, the right arrow. There it is. So that's the HTML entity I'm going to be using for that one. Okay, so I just need to select this, and then I'll go back to the sections, and then I'm going to collapse this section. Alright, so now we are in the section for the gallery. I'm going to select the gallery content, this one, gallery content. Okay, so padding top and bottom is going to be 8 rem, left and right 0. And then the small title, I'm going to give it a big font size. So the small title, font size of 3 rem, and then a paragraph within it. I'm going to also do some different styles, and then I'm going to target the image. After that, I'm going to say image, and then within the image, I'm going to give it a position relative, because I'm going to position absolute something inside the image container. So that's why I'm giving it a position relative. And then the actual image, I'm going to give it a width of 100%. Okay, and then inside the image we have bottom button, bottom btn, if you remember, btn. Okay, so I'm going to give it a position of absolute, bottom 0, right of 0. I want it to be positioned at the right side. Okay, and the background color is going to be white, and then we're going to give it a transition and the background color and the padding. And then on hover and hover, on hover, I'm going to give it a background color. So the background color is going to be this purple color here. Okay, and then a color of white, color of #ff white. Okay, now let's see what we got. So this is what we have. So we have an image. So this is the image container, and then with an image inside it, and then a button right there. Okay, so we have an arrow here as well from the button. Okay, so now this is the text, and then that's the button. Okay, so that's it for this section here. Let's move on to another section, which is the block section. Okay, so this block section, it's going to be somewhat quicker. Not quicker, I mean, it's not going to be that time consuming, but it's boring section. Okay, so now I'm going to collapse this section here. Okay, so now let's work on the the blogs section. Okay, so in here I'm going to say we're going to have a blog. So we're going to have an individual blog, and then inside the blog we're going to have blog content. Okay, and then we're going to have an image class, and then we're going to have an img, and then I'm going to say img blog1. Okay, after that I'm going to have an h4 and an anchor tag. I'm just going to paste it down that after the image. So we have an h4 anchor tag, and then here I'm just going to do an entity, HTML entity, and then say right arrow, can't remember, like I think it's, yeah, this one, right arrow, like that. So that's the HTML entity. It's going to give us an arrow. Okay, so now that's our blog content. That's pretty much it for the blog content. I just need to paste this two more times actually, 1, 2, and then this one, just change this to 3, and then I'm going to change this to 2, and then you can, you know, change the rest accordingly. Excuse me. I'm going to save that. So there it is. So we have 3 blogs items. These images are very huge, so we just need to go back to the styles and start doing all the styles for that. Okay, so I'm going to collapse this section gallery here, and then start with the blocks. So, you know, it's something we've been doing. We're going to do a grid, display grid, and then grid template columns. We're going to do 3 for this one. Okay, so grid template columns 3, grid gap of 2 rem, and then yeah, we have margin top and bottom is 8 rem, and then I'm actually gonna do a padding left and right padding. So 0 top and bottom, left and right is going to be 4 rem. Okay, so you're going to see why, because we're not using that utility class. That's why we're doing that. Okay, so now the images are still huge, so we just need to keep styling. In here I'm gonna select the blog. So for the blog I'm gonna do transition, and then I'm gonna do trans, and then border radius, it's going to be 10 pixels. Okay, and then on hover I'm going to scale this 1.1. so blog and hover, I'm going to scale this 1.1. okay, after that I'm going to target blog content. So for the blog content I'm going to have a padding. Top and bottom is going to be, actually not top and bottom, I want padding around everything, 1.5 rem. And then I'm going to target the image within the blog. The image, I want to have a width of 100%. Okay, so there is the image. It's occupying the 100% of the width, okay, of the grid item, because we're using a grid. So if I inspect this, as you can see, we have 3 grid items. The image is occupying the entire width of the grid item. So when we have it's scaling up. Alright, so and also when we have we're getting a background color, as we did here. We set background color on hover and then scale. Okay, and then I'm going to target the h4. I want to give it a different font size, and then I'm going to target the anchor tag, and then I'm going to give it some styles as well. So the font size, I want it to be smaller, and the margin, okay, it's taking ages to load, I don't know why. Okay, there it is. So now we have a smaller font size, and now when we have everything looks clean. Okay, so now let's move on to another section. So this section is going to be the footer section. Actually no, it's the contact. Okay, I'm going to collapse this, collapse. I'm going to say section dot section contact. Okay, so section contact, and then in the contact I'm going to do contact info. So for the contact info, I'm just going to actually have two sections. We have the left contact, and yeah, we have left contact, and the input control. If you remember, we did the class name already for the input control. I'm just going to paste that in, input control. We're reusing the input control, so we've done the styles for this one already. We don't need to redo it again. Okay, so I'm just going to go inside the left contact. I'm going to paste in an H2, a title, and then a paragraph. That's it. So now we just need to go ahead and do the styles. So the styles for that are pretty straightforward. I'm just going to collapse the section blocks, and then I'm going to get started with the contact, and then I'm going to start with a margin, top and bottom, 8 rem, 8 rem, left and right, just in case we're doing this, just in case we might need to change it, or we can just do like this, 8 rem. It's going to surround everything with a margin of 8 rem. Okay, so now I'm just going to also put a background color, and then I'm going to do border radius. The border radius is going to be 10 pixels. I want it to be slightly rounded a little bit. Okay, so I'm also going to target the left contact. If you remember the class name, left contact. Width, I'm going to give a width of 80%, okay, and then in there we have an H2. We're going to target that, and then padding bottom, padding bottom is going to be 0.8 rem, and then I'm also going to target the paragraph inside that, the paragraph, and the color and opacity. That's what I'm going to do. And then the input control, I'm going to target the input control. We've done the styles for the input control already, but we just want some different styles. Okay, so I want the input to have a different color, and then the button to have a different color as well. So I'm just going to target input control, and then input, give it a black background color, and then the button, give it a purple background color. Okay, there it is. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so input control. Okay, I think I know why. So we have a background color, section contact, left contact. Oh, I'm actually missing a contact info. I'm going to collapse this, cut. I'm going to say dot contact info, and then I'm going to put everything in contact info. Okay, so the actual contact info, I'm going to do a display flex, and then actually we're using a grid because we want to have 2 columns. You can do flex, but in this video I'm deciding to use a grid in everything. So display grid, and then padding top and bottom as well. So padding top and bottom 6 rem, and then left and right 4 rem. Okay, and then a grid gap of 4 rem. Okay, so grid template columns, we're going to have 2 columns. Okay, so there it is. So we have a nice contact section, but it's not yet styled. Okay, so the input control, it seems to be outside of the display grid. The input control seems to be on the wrong. Okay, the input control it should be after the left contact. Okay, so it was outside, it should be after, so it should be inside the contact info. So now the side to side. Okay, so There it is. So now I just need to target the input control, but I've done that. I don't know why it's not applying the styles. Input control, left contact. So input control is not supposed to be in the left contact. Okay, it should be inside the contact info, but not inside the left contact. And then I'm taking it out and then reapply those styles. So now, as you can see, we have a different color for the email address and the button. Okay, so as you can see, when I go here, we have a different color here, and we have a different color here. Okay, so now that's it for this contact section. Now let's just do a footer section. Okay, so for the footer, this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to say footer dot footer, and then in the footer is just a paragraph and then some text. Okay, paragraph with text. There it is. So that's the footer. I'm gonna go to the styles. The footer is quite straightforward. It's just a display flex and center everything. Actually, it's not a flex, just a padding, background color, and text align of center. It's going to align the paragraph on the center. There it is. So we have a footer now. Okay, so now after we have a footer, we actually need something else on top of the footer. We are going to do a custom cursor. So I'm going to say cursor. Okay, there it is. So a custom cursor. I'm going to maybe go below here, do the cursor. So for the cursor, I want it to be rounded. So to round something, just make sure the width and the height. Width, actually I'm going to do 3.8 frame, and the height, it should be the same as well. Height. So I want it to be centered, rounded, but a radius 50%. And then I'm just going to give it a background color and a position of absolute. Position of absolute. Okay, so there we should have a cursor. So there it is. There's our cursor. Okay, so now let's go ahead and include the JavaScript file. I'm going to say script. Oh my days. Script. And then I'm going to say source. I'm going to say JS app.js. Okay, so in this video, for the animations, we're going to do some scroll animations. We can use the built-in JavaScript intersection observer API, but it's going to be time consuming to use the intersection observer. So in this case, we're going to be using some libraries. So the first one we're going to be using is Scroll Magic. Okay, so here, that's the one. So just go to this CDN, just copy this script for the Scroll Magic and the indicators as well. Just copy this whole thing, go up above the app.js, and then just paste it there. Okay, so that's for the Scroll Magic, but we also need to use something else. Okay, I'm gonna say, okay, so we also need to find Gsap CDN. So this is the animation library. Okay, Gsap CDN. We should have what is the CDN? Okay, so I think this is the CDN. Copy this. Scroll trigger, motion. Yeah, I think that's the CDN for Gsap. And then just paste it on top of the script.js. Okay, just paste in the Gsap there. So Gsap 3.8, that's the version, the current version. And then we now need Gsap Scroll Magic plugin. Gsap Scroll Magic plugin. Okay, so we need a CDN somehow. Okay, we're going to fix that later. I'm just gonna save. Let's save with what we have. So now let's go to the JavaScript. Okay, so now to be able to use the Scrum Magic and Gsap, you know, if I go to the documentation, Scrum Magic, if I go to the documentation, it says that down here I need to create a controller to use the Scrum Magic. Okay, so controller, initialize the controller. So up here I'm going to say let controller to use the Scrum Magic. Okay, and then I'm going to do a let. I'm going to say review scene. So you have to create a scene for to use this controller with Gsap. Okay, so first off, let's start with a custom cursor. I'm going to say custom cursor. Okay, custom cursor. Okay, so to do a custom cursor, this is pretty easy to do. I'm just going to do a function. You should create a function. It's not doing it. I can't remember the shortcut to create a function. I think it's like this. Okay, so this one is going to be custom cursor, and then in here it's going to take the event. So for example, if I say cog, I'm just gonna print the E. In here I'm gonna say window dot add event listener. So I want to track the mouse movement. So the mouse movement is called mouse move, and then I want to track that, and then I'm gonna invoke the custom cursor function. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and then let's go back to the theme, and then I'm going to inspect this, go to the console. So now as you can see, it's tracking all the mouse movement. So in the mouse movement, we actually want two values. We want the page Y and page X. It should be somewhere in there, but I don't want to waste your time looking for it. It's actually here. Oops, there is page Y and page X, so that's like the position and stuff. Okay, so we want that. So we want to select, actually we're gonna say let cursor is equals to document.query selector, because we want to target the cursor, so we want to select the cursor element. Okay, so we have a class of cursor for that. So that's how we target the cursor. Okay, so in here we're just going to say cursor dot style dot top. So this is like the Y value. We want to get the Y, which is goes to page E, the event, page Y, if you remember, page Y, if you remember from the values from the console, we have a value of page Y plus pixels. So we want to get the value and then add the pixel after that. So it's going to be like, what, let's say it's 10, it's going to be 10 pixels. Okay, and then after that we want to get the left, which is the X value, left, and then here we just say page X. Okay, so now we just need to save this. As you can see, now we have a custom cursor. Okay, there it is. We can do a custom cursor. Now we just need to center this cursor with the default one. Okay, to do that, here I'm just going to say translate minus 50% on the x-axis and minus 50% on the y. So just to make sure it's nicely centered. Actually, because it's not working, we didn't put percent here. There it is. So now it's nicely centered. Okay, we also need, it doesn't let us do anything, we need to do the pointer events. So we don't need to be affected by the mouse, so pointer events to none. Okay, so we don't need to affect anything. So now we can copy and we can have a okay. So now after the cursor animations, let's go down here and create a function. So this function, I'm going to call this function const review. I'm just going to define like this function. I'm going to say review animations. So we're going to do some review animations. Okay, so now we have the function. So we need to initialize the scroll magic. If you go to the documentation, it says to use scroll magic. We need to do a controller and then initialize the scroll magic. So let's say init scroll magic. Okay, so to initialize that, I'm just going to say controller. We created the variable already, so it's to new scroll magic dot controller. All right, so now we have the scroll magic. I just need to I just need to select some elements that we're going to be using. So for first off, I'm just going to say const sections. I'm going to target every section that I've created, sections, and then I'm going to say document to query selector or I'm going to target every section which we've created, so sections, and then every section I want to do something. Okay, so I'm going to say sections for every section. I'm going to say for each, and then it's going to take a callback function. I'm going to say section. Okay, so for every section we're going to do something. Okay, so now in this callback function we have access to each individual section, and then the index, and then we have access to everything, to sections, to every so we have access to the individual section, the index, and the sections, all of them. Okay, so in this case we're not going to be using the index and the section, so we can remove that. Okay, so now we are in the for each. Now we need to do some magic. We need to start using the Gsap animations. Okay, but before we do the sections, as you can see right here, we have the header and the navigation. So I think it will be a good start to start with the header and the navigation. Okay, so we're still in this function right here. I'm going to select I'm going to run this. I'm going to select the header and I'm not going to select the header. I'm going to select this section here. I can't remember what I've named it. It's actually left header. Okay, so I'm going to name that header review. Document query selector header review. Okay, so that's what I'm going to name it, and then that's the left header, which is this section here. I want to start animating this and the navigation too. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this. I'm going to say navigation, like so. Okay, so I'm going to say so in Gsap, to be able to animate something one after another, you need to use a timeline. If you don't use a timeline, everything's just going to animate at the same time. Okay, so that's not the effect that we're looking for. We want some things to animate one after another. So as long as you put something things in a timeline, they're going to do after one after another. That's the kind of effect we're looking for. But if you want everything to start at the same time, you can just do the animations outside of the timeline. But in this case, we're going to be using a timeline. So to use a timeline, it's quite easy. You just say const header. So this is the header timeline, and then we're going to say is equals to. So to use Gsap, we say Gsap dot timeline. So we're using the timeline from Gsap timeline. Okay, so it's a function. So this function is going to take an object. Okay, so this object is going to contain some default values for the animations. So I'm going to say defaults. So the first default value is going to be an object. Okay, so inside this object we're going to have a duration. So by default, this animation, all of the animations by default within this timeline, this header timeline, these animations are going to have a duration of 1.4 seconds by default. And then we're going to also do an is. So this is like an is in, is out. So is okay, so to look for these is effects, you need to go to Gsap. Actually, you can find a nice effects. Gsap is okay. So there's this ease visualizer. I can't say the word ease visualizer. So you can kind of look at the kind of effect you're looking for. It depends of what you're looking for. In this case, this is the effect that I'm looking for. So power 2 or power 3, it's up to you what you decide for. In this case, I'm just going to copy this power 2. Okay, so you can create your own custom effect. You know, it's up to you. Just work around with this, you know, custom thingy. Okay, so in here I'm just going to paste that. That's the default is effect that I want to use. Okay, so now we have this timeline. Now we are ready to start doing the animations. Okay, so that means if I use this timeline, everything inside this timeline, they're going to animate one after another. So in this case, let's say I want to start with the navigation. I'll just say header timeline dot, actually, so to animate with Gsap, you can say dot from to. So from to, it actually means you're animating from somewhere to somewhere. Okay, so from to, okay, it's like we are coming from somewhere going somewhere. So in this case, what am I going to animate? So the first parameter is going to be the navigation. I want to animate the navigation. So, and then I'm going to say comma. So do you remember we have a duration, a default duration? So the next parameter here is duration, but in this case, I may not want the duration because we have a default of 1.4. You can choose to put it or not. So in this case, I want the duration of 1 second. Okay, and then another one is going to be an object. So this object is going to be actually from. So the from object, so for the navigation, I'm going to say y. I want it to be minus 100%. Okay, from, and then to, it's going to be comma, another object, y 0. So it's coming from, you know, y minus 100% to y 0. So it's going to start all the way outside and then come down. Okay, I'm going to save this. Seems like it didn't work. Save. Oh, I know why it didn't work, because we're not calling this function. So here, just say review animations, we need to call this function. Okay, so once we call this function, there it is. So the animation seems to be not working properly. I don't know why it's not doing that, but it's actually working, but I don't know why it's not, like, you know, sliding in. We're going to, you know, look around that later. Okay, so now after this, the navigation, we're going to do the header timeline dot from to. In this case, we're going to do header review. We're going to animate the header. Okay, so the duration, I'm not gonna, it's 1.4, the default duration, so I'm not gonna specify it here. There's no need. Okay, so I'm gonna say y. So for the y-axis, I'm gonna give it minus 100%, and then I'm gonna say comma opacity. I'm just going to, you know, give it an opacity of 0. I want you to start at opacity of 0, and then I wanted to do a scale as well, scale of 0. Okay, so that's the starting point, and then I'm gonna say comma. So this is the, you know, 2 point. So from and to. So in here I'm gonna say y. So we started at minus, so now we just need to, you know, change these values a little. I'm gonna just paste these instead of rewriting. So instead of y, I'm gonna, from minus, it's gonna come back to 0. Then the opacity is gonna come back to 1, and then the scale is gonna come back to 1. Okay, there you go. So now, as you can see, the navigation animated, and then the left content animated as well. So I'm gonna save again, See, everything animates. Okay, so it's going to animate after the navigation, so it's coming nicely. Okay, so the opacity, the scale, so you can, you know, kind of add any transition element, any transition you can do, rotate, whatever effect you're looking for, you can do it here. Okay, from to. So in this case we did the scale and the opacity. Okay, so for the header, we're not going to do much in the header, so that's pretty much it for the header. We're going to do the navigation, you know, maybe do some little more stuff later for the nav, but for the header, so I'm kind of liking this kind of animation for the header here. So now let's do the sections. So for the sections, I am going to go in the body. So for the section, I'm going to create a class inside this section, and I'm going to say section contact. I'm going to say dot section filler. Okay, so this is the class. It's going to be a section filler. I'm going to copy this section filler and I'm going to put in every section. Okay, you're going to see why I'm doing this. Okay, so every section is going to have a section filler. Okay, so every section has a section filler. I'm just gonna go here in the styles. In the main content, I'm just up here. I'm just gonna say section. I'm gonna target all of these sections, and then I'm gonna give it a position of relative. And then inside all of those sections, I'm gonna say dot section filler. Section filler. Okay, so the section filler, I'm gonna give it a position of absolute. Position absolute. Absolute. I'm gonna, you know, do left 0, top 0. I want to position wherever I want, so that's why I'm using absolute. Okay, and then height 100%, width 100%, 100%. Okay, and then z index, yeah, let's do 5, and then a background color red. Okay, so let me show you what I've done. Okay, so now we're covering all those sections with these, you know, the filler. Okay, so these are the fillers. We're going to animate these fillers. So if I go to the app.js, we're going to be in here in this section. So we're looping each of the section. So we want to do something on each of the section. That's why we are looping for like each of the sections. So I'm going to say const. I'm going to say filler. So I'm going to say it's equals to section. So this section, we're within this section. I'm going to say dot query selector, or actually I just want query selector. So I'm gonna target the fillers in here. I'm gonna say dot section filler. Okay, I'm gonna target that. I'm also going to select the team with those cards. Const team is equals to section dot query selector. I'm gonna say dot team. Okay, so now that's it for that. We also need to create another timeline because we're now within this section. The sections, we need a different timeline for this one. Okay, I'm gonna say dot review timeline. So this is the review timeline. We're just going to say gsap dot timeline. So we're doing the same thing really here. So it's defaults, and then we're going to say duration 1.4 seconds. Okay, actually for this one I think I'll just do 1 second, and then I'm going to do ease. It's the same thing. I'm just gonna paste it in instead of rewriting this. Okay, so now we have the ease. So now we have the timeline. Let's start doing the animations. Okay, so now I'm gonna say animations, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna say review timeline dot from to. Okay, so from to. So what am I animating here? I'm going to animate the filler. So the red background color, it's temporary, by the way. So I'm gonna say 2 seconds. That's the duration. And then I'm gonna say on the x-axis it's going to be 0. That's the starting point. And then the 2, I'm gonna say x, and then for the 2 I'm just going to do 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna save this. Okay, I'm gonna refresh. So as you can see, it's animating. Okay, so the red thing is animating. So now for the red thing, since it's animating, there is something weird going on. It's it's kind of doing this horizontal scroll bar. To get rid of that, go back to the body and do overflow x of hidden. So we don't want to show that scroll bar. So when I refresh this, so it's animating. Yeah, it's animating. That's the important thing. So the another annoying thing is it's kind of slow. You can mess around with the duration, and the background color is too bright as well. So now let's go back, and I'm gonna look for red. I'm gonna change from red to black. I was only showing red just to show you what it looks like, but now you know what it looks like. So this is the effect we're going for. So it's going to slide the text, but we want to trigger this when we scroll. We don't want this animation to just play random but let's keep going. Animations. So after that, I want to target the camera. I'm gonna target the query selector of camera. So in here I'm gonna say camera. So we have a class of camera. I'm just gonna paste it here. So const camera document query selector the camera. Okay, so we want to animate the camera, which is this camera here, this image. To animate that, it's quite straightforward. We're not gonna do much. So we're gonna say new timeline, just change from to, and then change this to camera. Okay, so the camera is gonna have a duration of 1.5, and then x is going to start at minus 100%. Okay, and we're also going to animate the opacity. So the opacity is going to be 0. Okay, so now we have animated the opacity. We just need to copy this and paste. Okay, so opacity 1. What did I copy wrong here? I don't know what I've done wrong somewhere. This one is not supposed to be here. Okay, so I'm gonna bring back this to 0, opacity to 1. Alright, I think that's it for the camera image. I'm gonna save. Okay, so now it's animating. We're going to add a little bit of a delay later. I'll show you how to add a delay. Okay, so now with the camera, we also need to animate these little cards components here. I'm gonna select this. To select that from the, I can't remember the class name for that. I think it's the, oh, it's the team. It's actually the team. So these are those little cards there, team. Okay, so the team, we're going to have a Y. So for the Y, we're going to do 400 pixels. 400 pixels. And then opacity, it's going to be 0. Scale, 0. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this Y and then put a comma, opacity 1, scale 1, and then Y 0. So to add a delay, a little bit of a delay, so actually we're going to do the delay later when we do the scroll animations, and then you're gonna see what I'm talking about. So when I save this, as you can see, it's taking ages to play this animation because it's going one after another. So it's like it's going 2 seconds, 1 second, so it's gonna wait 2 seconds, and then it's gonna play this, wait 1.5 seconds, and then it plays this one. So it's going in order. So in order to give this a little bit of delay, if you want to add any delay to any of these items, just put a comma after the objects and then put some quotes and then do minus equal, and then whatever value you put after that is going to be like a delay. So in this case, I'm going to do minus 3 seconds. That's the delay I'm going to go for. So here it's going to do the animation quicker. Okay, so I think, what is the thing? I think there it is. Okay, I think it's taking a bit of, I think I'm gonna decrease this to maybe 2. So it's up to you what you decide to do with the delay. Okay, so now I want to kind of trigger these animations. Actually, I didn't show you these animations here. So when I refresh, it's kind of doing a weird stuff. I don't know why it's doing this weird stuff. I think it's because we haven't done the scroll animations for them to trigger using the scroll animations. Refresh. That's weird. Let's see what we're animating here. So we're targeting the team, the filler. Okay, defaults. Let me just see if I've done something wrong, just in case. I don't want to, I'll change this to 0.1 just to make it different. From 2, scale. Okay, I don't think I've missed anything. Okay, so I think it's only because we haven't implemented the scroll animations. If the error persists, we're gonna see what's going on. Okay, so now I'm gonna say animate on scroll. So to animate on scroll, we need to we created a scene. We need to create a scene, review scene. So as you can see here, I just closed the Scroll Magic documentation. Scroll Magic, there it is. So here to do the animation, we need to create a scene, duration, offset, set pin, and add to controller. So this is I assign the scene to controller, and then we're going to set a pin. I'm going to explain what's that. Okay, so now I'm going to say review scene. I'm going to say is equals to new scroll magic, new scroll magic dot scene. Okay, so in here it's gonna take an object. So we're gonna have the trigger element trigger element. So the trigger element is going to be the section. Okay, so we're going to trigger this animation when we reach this section, when we're scrolling. I'm going to show you what that is. So trigger element section, and then we're going to have a trigger hook where we want the animation to trigger. So this is like the position on the view height where exactly we want the animation to trigger. So in this case, I want it to trigger 0.4, nearly half of the page. Okay, and then I'm going to say, now after this scene, I'm going to say I'm going to say add indicators like this. And then after that, I'm going to say dot, make sure you don't put a semicolon, add to controller, the controller we've created up there. Okay, so make sure you don't put a semicolon like this. It's going to break your code. And then I'm going to save. So when I save, as you can see, we have a trigger here. So this is where it's going to trigger the animation. So it's 0.4. So it depends where the so in this case, when I scroll, when I reach this point, so it says start here. Once this start reach the trigger, it's gonna like trigger the animations. That's what I want to happen. I want to trigger the animations once I reach this certain point. Okay, so that's why I'm using the trigger hook 0.4. For example, if I do 0.2, as you can see, it's gonna trigger a different one second, trigger hook. Actually, trigger hook, as you can see, it's going to trigger at a different location. Okay, so now in this case, I want 0.4. I want it to trigger as 0.4. I don't know what's going on this page. Okay, so there it is, 0.4. That's where I want the animations to trigger. Okay, so to do that, we need to do a set tween. We need to set a tween between here. I'm going to say set tween. Okay, so the tween, we're going to do the timeline. So we're going to trigger using this timeline, which is review timeline. Okay, so something weird is going on. Okay, so we need to inspect this, go to the console. So it says, I don't know what this error is, but okay, now refresh, and then it says set tween is not a function. So we're missing a plugin. We need a set tween plugin. Okay, so to get the plugin, I'm gonna say the easy way, just do this. Set tween is not a function, just do this, put it here. Set tween is not a function. Just search for the error and then just click here, and then scroll down, and then it will show you that you need to install the plugin. So this is the link for the plugin. So the plugin, the order here matters when we're putting the plugin here. So the order you put these JavaScript source files, the order really matters. So for example, if I put this plugin up here, watch and see, we're still going to get the same error. We're still going to get the same error. Okay, the plugin is not working. So the order here really matters. So we need to put this plugin below the Scroll Magic, the version. Actually, we need to put it after, below Scroll Magic, plugins, add indicator. Okay, I'm just looking where to put it. Okay, we need to put it after the indicators. Okay, so after the indicators, that's where we need to put the plugin. Okay, so now let's save. Seems like cannot read undefined of scene. Nope, we need to reposition this again. So animation, I'm gonna cut this, the first one, the animation. So this scroll magic min.js, it has to be on top. Okay, and then the indicator, it has to be where it is. Alright, so now I'm gonna save. Okay, so now it's back, it's working now. So you kind of need to, you know, mess around with the order which you put these, you know, scripts. So the order really matters. So that's, you know, the way you have to kind of figure out which order you have to put them in. Okay, so in this case, we're starting with the scroll magic, the actual scroll magic, and then after that, we have the animation, animation.js, and then after that we have the it looks like this is the same thing. I don't know what this is. I think I need to delete one of these. I didn't notice that. I'm gonna delete one of these. Okay, yeah, so now we have scroll magic, and then we have the animation, and then we have the indicators. Okay, so we should have 4 script tags, actually 5 script tags in total. Okay, so now as you can see, we have the trigger, the start one. So these are sections. So the first section, second section, third section, fourth section. So as you can see, these animations are triggering based on the section, but this trigger, I cannot see it properly. You know, we can kind of mess around renaming and recoloring the trigger debuggers. So in here, indicators, we can put an object here, we can mess around with the trigger. So we can kind of say color start. So for the color start, I'm gonna say white. Okay, so for the color start, it's going to be white, and then color trigger, it's going to be white as well. Color trigger white, and then we're also going to do name. So this is going to be the name. The name of the trigger is going to be reveal. Okay, I'm going to save this. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. Animations work. Okay, so there's something going on with this animation. It's kind of, you know, glitchy. Okay, there you go. So these animations kind of, you know, they're kind of reversing. So if you want to keep this reverse effect, you can keep it, but I don't like this kind of reverse effect. You know, they're like reversing. So if you want to get rid of that reversing effect, you can go to the trigger element in here. You can say comma. You can say reverse to false. So if you don't want to reverse the animation, you can just, you know, get rid of the reverse effect. It's taking ages to load, I don't know why. Okay, so now it should work without the reverse effect. Okay, so now it's not reversing. Okay, so now we just need to see why it's glitching right here. Trigger. I'm gonna reload. Okay, scroll down, review. Okay, it's taking ages to show. So the name is team -3. Okay, I'm gonna go back to -3 just to see. I'm gonna refresh this. Reverse. It's doing this glitchy weird stuff. Okay, let me see what's going on. Team opacity. I'm gonna change this duration. Let me see if I put it to 1. But I want it to be like some sort of, you know, quick. View. It's glitching again. Okay, so opacity. Okay, I think I know why. What's the name of, I think it's team. Team. What's the parent of team? Team cards. I think it's overflow hidden, something like that. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, yeah, it's overflow hidden. So of course you can mess around with the delay here. So I'm gonna say -5. So it's gonna affect when and how it's gonna appear. Okay, so trigger. Not doing well for me. Okay, trigger. Still taking ages to appear. Minus equal. Yeah, so you can kind of mess around with the delay a little bit to see what kind of delay you are looking for, you know what I mean? So you can kind of also, if you don't want the scale, scale, you can kind of get rid of it, or you can just do scale 1 just to see how it's gonna, what it's gonna look like if you get rid of the scale. Just going to appear like from the bottom. And also I think the ease, you can change the ease as well to see what kind of easing suits your needs. Okay, so yeah, it's doing good. Just mess around with the trigger hooks, the opacity, the scales, the delays. Just mess around to see what kind of look you're going for. Okay, you can also mess around with this contact section here. So yeah, it's really, the rest is really up to you. Even the navigation, mess around with the animation for the navigation. Instead you can do maybe X instead of Y. You bring it to 0, it's gonna come like that, and then it's gonna do blah blah down. And then you can also mess around with the opacity. I'm gonna start with 0, I'm gonna end with opacity of 1, and then you can do a rotate, scale. It's up to you how you decide to do your thing. Okay, so let's try scale. So navigation, scale 0, and then you can do rotate as well if you want, scale 1. So you can do the rotations and stuff. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like this. So the rest is up to you. Just mess around with everything, how you want to do it. Just mess around. Okay, I'll leave it like this. I didn't want the video to be this long because I was doing HTML and CSS. It takes a lot of time to do the styles, but yeah, I'll leave it here. If you want to request for any special features, just comment down the video below. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you're new to the channel. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.